3, 2, 1. Hello folks, welcome to OTD, also known as On the Deck, where you can get all the sports you need in 10 minutes. My name is Adam Arduna. This is my mom, Gina.
He is a journalist.
And she's the enthusiast.
She is the enthusiastic because once again we're doing Facebook Live.
Yes.
And we're talking about my favorite subject ever, football.
It was a great weekend for football.
Oh my
if
gosh.
you were with your family and you had a television, you were probably watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
And then you were eating.
Eating your face off and then watching football. On all levels.
Yeah. I already did that. But
well, like we just mentioned, it was a great weekend of football, and so especially for the high school rankings where a lot of state championships were played, you also had a lot of great college games, and then you had some great professional games. So we're going to really just talk about two games on the college, or I guess in both the college and the pros. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the college level first, and let's talk about the Ohio State-Michigan game.
Let's do that.
Ohio State has basically been the only other team in the country besides Alabama to show complete dominance from start to finish and consistently beat teams. There hasn't been a lot of other teams to challenge those other two schools. So this year there's some parity where the rivalry has now really been restored with Michigan becoming one of the best teams in the country. And so we had a great game this weekend in Columbus, Ohio, where the game took place, and it did not disappoint.
Well, and I mean, to what you're saying, you have had Florida State, you've had some Oregon, you always have Oklahoma in the conversation, but when you're talking about consistent dominance, Alabama and Ohio State have been doing it. Unfortunately,
year after year. We're not talking about the one season where, oh, you had your great quarterback, and oh, you had all seniors that were that good. No, we're talking about every year where your coaching staff, your players, from freshman on up, all the way there.
But the problem has been that Michigan, after Lloyd Card left, he left a disarray in the defense, and then Brady Hoke took over, and you had a big hole, not just, I don't want to just call it in the recruiting, but just in the overall gameplay. So then entered the man, the myth, the legend,
the magician,
up in the trees, Jim Harbaugh, and he has brought Michigan back from the dead like right now. It's an adrenaline shot to the heart. It's all of that. And they were relevant last year, fighting it out, let one get away, bouncing off the tube of Michigan State, who is completely irrelevant. And they lost a close one. I mean, a close one last year to Ohio State. So the build-up for this game was just off the chain.
It was, yes.
And it did not disappoint.
It did not. Both teams came in with one loss, and there was a lot of postseason implications that we're dealing with this game and the Big Ten championship game, the top
national
4 ranking,
yes.
Just where you're going to be as far as a January bowl game, etc. There's a lot on the line, and these two teams
and pride.
This arguably is the #1 rivalry in all of college sports.
I would agree with that
it's
because
a very competitive game.
If you think about it, we don't have the Nebraska, Oklahoma anymore. You don't have KU and Mizzou anymore. You don't have Texas and A&M playing each other anymore.
Right.
Alabama, who's their rival? It's technically Auburn. They blow them out. This is really one of just the last of the old school college rivalries.
Correct.
And I mean, you had LeBron James actually showing up with a bunch of his Cavalier players sitting around.
They set a record at the stadium. I mean, it's with attendance. I mean, there's a lot going on with this game.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of history. Even the town of Ohio, which basically sits on the border of
Toledo.
Michigan and Ohio, is split down the middle between which team you root for. They actually have a college in that town, University of Toledo. This is crazy. But
community college.
But they don't matter.
But at the end of the day, Michigan got cheated out of a win
okay,
in the last seconds
here we
because
go.
the refs got involved.
Here we go. Now there's no objectivity about what actually went down in the game.
No, it doesn't. It's not objectivity.
No
it's
objectivity.
It's not objective when it's fact.
Look,
That's
Ohio State's kicker missed 2 field goals. Ohio State let them in the game, and they still lost. So you can't sit here and just say that they got cheated. Now, were there some questionable plays? Of course, you could say that about every game.
Are you trying to tell
now,
me a kicker
it's
let
all of a
somebody in
sudden
the
there's
game?
a cheating game. I mean, no, I think there's some saltiness going on over here.
I'm salty.
And we'll just leave it at that.
Let's be clear. I am salty.
Okay.
How many more minutes I got? 2 minutes?
We still got a few minutes on this subject.
Well, let me be clear. There are players who are going to miss plays. That happens. But what you're supposed to have is a guy who is just a part of the field, just like the lines and the line marker and the goalposts, and that's your officials. And at the end of the game, in not single overtime, double overtime, they insert themselves into it. Oh, and let's be clear about getting back in the game. Forget missed field goals. How about the refs throwing personal fouls, flags, unsportsmanlike conduct because Jim Harbaugh was mad about the call they just messed up the time before. They missed a PI. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
They had a couple questionable pass interference calls.
Poor Jim Harbaugh just flipped his little clipboard because he was upset. Football coaches are intense. Newsflash. And then the ref's going to turn around and tack on another 15 yards to that. So basically the refs walked poor Ohio State down into scoring position to get them in the position to tie up the game so that they could go to overtime. That's what I'm talking about.
I have no more words as far as, you know.
You know why you don't?
I don't have anything else to say.
They spotted the ball and gave a first down when they were clearly, when the quarterback, JT Barrett, was clearly short.
Michigan gave a couple turnovers there, a pick six. I mean, there are some things that Michigan did not do well to help themselves. So, for me to be like,
you know,
the refs this down the third,
they were beating them down.
Look, you got to play perfect football when you're on the road. In an environment like that, regardless of what's going on, referees are not, you of all people know that the refs are not going to help you in any of these situations.
Fair enough, but
so Michigan cannot shoot themselves in the foot. And that's exactly what they did do.
Well, here's the last argument
Just
I'm going to make.
for that.
I get it. You want to go in there and blow them out. But when you are doing that and the refs give them 35, 45, 55 yards and penalties or give you a spot on the ball that's 6 or 7 inches off, that's all I'm saying. No, you don't ever want to leave it up to the refs, but the refs do impact.
It sounds like a lot of sour grapes.
Can we move on to the NFL?
We can go ahead and move on to the NFL game that we wanted to highlight. If you guys tuned in to the Chiefs game last night.
That's how you end the weekend.
The Chiefs
Sunday Night Football
took their team
on the road.
Chiefs went into Denver in Mile High. They went to the Mile High City and took that dub from the Denver Broncos. I was so happy last night. Oh my goodness.
Snatching victory out of the jaws of defeat.
Wow. It was a barn burner. It was a slow battle to say the least.
Yes.
The whole first half because
all defense.
The defenses are so strong on both sides of the football.
Yes.
The Kansas City Chiefs defense is amazing. We all know about the Broncos defense and Von Miller and what they can do. It was just sacks and big hits left and right on both sides. It was really fun to watch.
Well, it was fun to watch, and for people who like basketball and complain that, oh, football's too slow or what have you, you know, you want to see score after score. This was not the game for you in the first half.
Right.
It was a perfect football game. It showcased defense. It showcased good hard hitting. It wasn't a bunch of dirty play. It wasn't a bunch of nonsense.
Right.
And then as the game ran down, it showed off what offenses can do when their defenses have set them up correctly.
Yes.
And I felt like Von Miller and Justin Houston were battling for who's going to have the most sacks that game. It was phenomenal.
Yes, and that game alone just was the icing on top for all of the games that were played this weekend.
Yes.
And so I guess I will ask you just a quick question.
Yeah.
Was this a bigger win for the Chiefs or a bigger loss for the Broncos?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because both teams were basically dead even as far as records and placement as far as the division goes. But this win can propel the Chiefs to really carrying this momentum into the next couple weeks.
I'm going to say because of the way the Chiefs played against a very good Tampa Bay team at home the week before, this is a bigger win for the Chiefs. A loss is always a bad thing, especially as you kind of get to this point in the season, but a good win in overtime at someone else's house, especially when it's in Mile High.
Right.
I mean, our guys had to practice with like masks on their mouth to limit their oxygen intake just so they could be prepared. So for me, this was a bigger win for the Chiefs. And here's what I'm also saying. I know the Broncos are looking at playoffs and feeling like they might be on the outs for the wild card, but the Chiefs needed this win. The Broncos had 2 weeks off. We had to come bounce off a loss, so I think it was a bigger win for the Chiefs.
And the way that they won, I think, is bigger more than anything else because the Broncos just missed a field goal, and the Chiefs kicked it and made it. And now it was a clanger off the left upright, but a point is a point. As long as it goes in, no one cares. It's good. So I agree. I think it was a bigger win for the Chiefs, and now they have beat the Raiders and the Broncos on the road, and that's really going to be huge going on into the season.
Well, I will tell you, football, if you consumed turkey and you like football, you got to consume great football
It was a great weekend.
It was great.
On all levels, yes.
Up and down the board.
So we're obviously excited to talk about it, but that's what our job is to bring you the sports news, and especially when it comes to football, since we are in transition to basketball season, we'll have a lot more coming up. in the future.
Now
but
we get to talk about LeBron.
But with that, we wanted to say we definitely appreciate your time, and thanks for tuning in and joining us today on OTD. And we want to say we'll see you next time, folks.